when somebody want to start and close. What do we want to do about that?
I can start.
Okay.
All right, in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Hello and Happy New Year. Welcome to the first episode of 2017. You are listening to the Living Water Boys. I am McBrien, joined as always by producer Will in Greenville and the Reverend Big Al in Raleigh, North Carolina. How's it going this year, fellas?
It's great. Just glad to be alive in 2K17.
Doing good, doing good.
Yes, we are happy to be alive, and we're just filled with happiness and joy because we just went through the thick part of bowl season. We really appreciate you all joining us through bowl season and our complete breakdown. We apologize for not getting to these last few days earlier, but there is swag to be discussed. And before we look back at some of the bowls that were just played and the swag that was dished out, the Reverend Big Al has something he needs to share with you from this past episode and some hate we dished out.
That's right, McBrien. Through the course of both of our first two bowl episodes, we really, specifically me, had a lot of negative things to say about the iSlide sandals. They just, in my opinion, I didn't see how they could be anywhere near as good as the Adidas Adilette slides, which have been so popular since I was a youth. But you know what? I decided they're in every bowl game as swag. It felt like we had to see what they're about. And you know what? I am very impressed. They are filled with emojis. You can get NBA players. You can get great phrases. You can get anything on these sandals. That's right. The iSlide sandals look like they are something special. So I'm sorry. I've got to eat the crow for railing on them. And I'm jealous of all the players who've been receiving those sandals for participating in these bowl games. I can't imagine what kind of pairs they got with all the different possibilities that existed out there on the website.
Yes, that's just a great example there by Reverend Big Al admitting his fault and just explaining himself there. Now, we have a few games we're just going to hit real quick, rapid fire, and tell you about some of the swag. Starting off on New Year's Eve, we had the Buffalo Wild Wings Citrus Bowl, during which players got iSlide sandals. They also got only a $25 Buffalo Wild Wings gift card. That's what, a dozen wings? But don't feel too bad for them. They got $305 to spend at Best Buy. I'm not sure why it wasn't $300, but the extra $5 might help out with tax or something like that. Personally, I didn't wake up at 11 a.m. to watch this. Did you guys?
I saw a little of it, not much. It was great to see LSU's defense come out strong. Of course, Lamar Jackson, that Heisman jinx, continued with a poor showing in the bowl game. I think what's most interesting, excuse me, is that they got an EA Sports video game. Brian, what game was it? Some of my favorites go back to the early Madden games of the mid-90s, or even NBA Live 96, which came complete with a trivia question included in each game. Which game do you think these players received for the Tax Slayer Bowl?
Probably FIFA 2008.
Oh, yeah, probably. I'm surprised they didn't go with one of the World Cup FIFAs. Those are the ones that I prefer because I am one who prefers country to club. All right, let's move on.
Well, also at 11 a.m. on New Year's Eve, the Tax Slayer Bowl had some swag that was up there. We've talked a lot about the Quick Lane Bowl, which offered a fat head of the player's likeness. The Tax Slayer Bowl for the Georgia Tech and Kentucky players offered a bobblehead with player's face.
Again, something that will be on my Christmas list for 2K17. Man, I'm so jealous of these players getting that personalized bobblehead. Could you imagine getting one of those in your house?
I think that would just be the creepiest thing if that was sitting on my mantle or on my desk. I'm sorry, I just don't think I would want a bobblehead with my own face on it.
Well, I'll take yours.
Well, I think for Pastors Appreciation Month, I hope all the congregations out there are listening because what a gift this would be. Now, the headliner on New Year's Eve, the Chick-fil-A Peach Bowl. somewhat of a good game for the first 10 minutes between Alabama and Washington. Players walked away with a $300 vanilla Visa gift card. What is the difference between a Visa gift card and a vanilla Visa gift card?
Well, I'm pretty sure that means you can only use it on vanilla extract, which might be found at one of your local grocery stores and is a helpful flavoring ingredient for many baked goods. Don't know why $300 worth it would be necessary, but you know what? Not sure what those folks down in Alabama are making. I bet there are a lot of apple pies that will be sitting on some window sills.
Do they
Well-
smell like vanilla? Like, are they scented Visa cards?
I've also been known to use vanilla with my laundry, just for that sweet smell in all my clothes. So there's lots of uses for vanilla, unless you think maybe it's just a gift card that can be used anywhere and it just happens to be called vanilla for no reason whatsoever.
I think it'd be awesome if you smelled vanilla when you swiped.
I think that would be incredible.
That would be great. Well, that was game 1 of the playoff. Game 2 was the PlayStation Fiesta Bowl, where players from Clemson and Ohio State got, you guessed it, a PS4 game and accessory bundle, also a throttle backpack, Fossil Watch, and then the ever popular football.
That's right, Brian. It looks like a football was given out at the last 3 games on New Year's Eve. So, safe to say these players all had something to play with as the ball was dropped, if you know what I mean. Man.
I know exactly what you mean. Now, college football took Christmas off for Jesus' birthday, and then they took New Year's Day off as well. Why do you think that was? I mean, obviously the NFL is playing, so they're not allowed to, but there's got to be a deeper reason, right?
Yeah, I think most of the players were hungover, and I'm really disappointed by that. Again, got to go back to the bowl game that was giving out mixer bottles to the players as swag. Certainly not encouraging mature behavior or responsible drinking, if you know what I mean. And so I think that's why they took the games off. I mean, looking at these games that were played on January 2nd, no way most of those players could have taken the field on the 1st.
Well, speaking of those players, Iowa and Florida, they kicked off at 1 o'clock on January 2nd. Again, luckily not January 1st, or it might have been a different game. The Outback Bowl is great. They get their Outback Steakhouse gift cards, Fossil Watch, Jostin's ring, throwing you back to high school there, and a Best Buy gift card. But what has the Outback Bowl done for any of us?
Well, I'll tell you what, it got me a bloomin' onion for lunch, because once Florida won, those bloomin' onion appetizers were free today to all fans. And we all know that given the choice between the bloomin' onion if Florida wins or the coconut shrimp appetizer if Iowa won, everybody was rooting for Florida because nobody wanted the coconut shrimp. So I know I am full today, and I have the Gators to thank for that.
Amen. And thanks to Rev Rob for pulling him through prayerfully. Also at 1 o'clock on January 2nd was the Cotton Bowl Classic, Western Michigan and Wisconsin. If that doesn't sound like the Cotton Bowl, I don't know what does. Now, I wish I could share with you what gifts they offered, but the Cotton Bowl would not disclose. Could you, with your journalistic tactics, get any more info on this, Reverend Big Al?
I was not able to. I do think there are several possibilities, though, that we can lay out for you today. First, it's possible there was actually not a gift at all. So maybe they didn't want to disclose it for fear of being embarrassed that they were the only bowl game to not give out something special. Of course, a second option is they're embarrassed because it's so inappropriate. Might it have been some sort of female escort or some other drugs or other narcotic paraphernalia? Maybe the players were really excited to get to the Cotton Bowl, but the bowl was not excited to disclose it because they might have faced potentially even some criminal action. Along those lines, it is the Cotton Bowl. Maybe they were given a bunch of cotton, but again, that might not have been an appropriate thing to share given the players and some of their backgrounds. So listen, I'm left with a bunch of questions for what the Cotton Bowl did, and I can't wait to figure out what's true and what's made up in all this speculation.
I wonder if we will ever know the answer to these questions. We do know, however, what the players at the Rose Bowl got. Rose Bowl was a great game. Penn State, USC. Players got a gift suite, Fossil watch, OGIO backpack, New Era 950 snapback, adjustable hat. But that's just, aside from the fact, the game was great.
Probably the best of the bowl season.
It was. And I can't remember ever watching a Rose Bowl. I've probably watched a dozen that did not look gorgeous. Is that what Southern California looks like all the time? Because if so, maybe I should have gone to Fuller.
Yes, it is. And I believe that's why they've nicknamed that place the land flowing with milk and honey. Isn't that right?
I can't verify that. But boy, did it look gorgeous. And I would love to be at the Rose Bowl one day. Now, the nightcap on January 2nd was Auburn in Oklahoma, which featured just some questionable praising of domestic violence, players who'd been accused of domestic violence.
Never a good idea.
Never a good idea. I'm not sure what – that was Musburger, was it not?
Of course. Uncle Brent.
Yeah. I'm all about forgiveness and wishing people well, but I think common sense should have told him to maybe avoid going that direction. But no matter what the players had been charged with or accused of in the past, they got to visit a gift suite. They got a Fossil watch with custom tin and a New Era cap.
Well, you know what they didn't get was a lawyer or an alibi. So something tells me we're going to be hearing more about some of those players in the coming weeks and months. But that's enough about that. We've only got one game left. It's been a great bowl season. It's been a lot of fun competing with so many listeners in our Listener League Bowl Pick'em. Lots of intelligent picks out there, lots of guys going out on a limb, seeing what they got. But, when it all comes down to it, there's one game left, and it's really the only one that matters. That is the College Football Playoff National Championship. Brian, we got Clemson and Alabama, a rematch next Monday. What can you tell us about what to look for in that game? Is there going to be any swag?
There is going to be the swag of all swag for the College Football Playoff National Championship game. Players will receive, and I quote, an iconic gift. I have no clue what that is, but players are walking away with it, and it surely will be iconic. Do you all have any guess what that might be?
I really don't. I know it'll be something memorable. Who knows? It might be a trip back in time. I mean, what is more iconic than going back in time? Maybe someone gets to see the day Bear Bryant and Danny Ford were coaching their teams in practice at their respective institutions. Who knows? Maybe it's a trip back in time to even when this college football playoff was dreamed up before these games existed. It could be a trip to the future, maybe even taking an almanac so that Uncle Biff could make lots of money, just like Back to the Future. I mean, who knows? It's going to be memorable. It's going to be one of a kind. It's going to be iconic.
Yeah, I'm going to take them literally here, and I think that the player's iconic gift might actually be an icon. I could see at the team hotels having an Orthodox father greet the players and hand each of them an icon. And I think the players, that would be really meaningful and inspire them in the game.
Well, given the Christmas season, it might be that they're playing on the Greek word icon, which, is translated in Colossians, Colossians 1, verse 15, into image, as we read that Jesus is the image of the invisible God. So maybe the icon really is that image, and it's a reminder that given the incarnation we celebrated with Christmas, God is Emmanuel. God is with us. There's a lot to be excited about, and really, is there any greater gift for any of these players than the gift of Jesus Christ himself?
There's not, and you're right. I think that the College Football Playoff National Championship game is tapping in to that exact fact.
Iconic.
Now, on the gridiron, Monday night, January 9th at 8:30 p.m., we've got the showdown, Alabama and Clemson. Now, we have a question. We just love our loyal listeners who holler at us using hashtag AskLWB. And, Will, what's our question related to the College Football Playoff National Championship game?
All right. This comes from @Todd Mollier. Do you think losing Kiffin will help or hurt Alabama's chance in the national title game? What do you think?
Well, great question. Certainly coming off the news that Lane Kiffin has been shown the door a little bit early after accepting the job at Florida Atlantic and getting started down there with some recruiting. You know, I think this is going to be a big blow to Alabama's chances. Kiffin's been there for 3 years. He's got a lot of imagination with that offense, at least compared to what they've done traditionally under Nick Saban with Jim McElwain and Doug Nussmeier. I really think Kiffin has broadened Alabama, made them a much better team, much more prepared, and much more explosive offensively with some of their weapons on the perimeter, both and in the backfield, as well as developing this quarterback, Jalen Hurt, off the read option. I think they're really going to miss Kiffin in this game. I think that's a big loss and might help swing the game. What do you think, Brian?
I don't think it's going to matter that much. He's out. I think Steve Sarkisian will do a fine job and that it'll be sufficient to get the players through the game. I'm going to go with my pick here based on the coaches, and I absolutely am trusting Saban over Dabo move to another country, Swinney.
Well, there's a hot take for you. Brian, it sounds like you're agreeing with so many who feel that it's more about the Jimmys and the Joes than it is the X's and the O's, and suggesting that coaching doesn't really matter. It just matters who has the best players. Well, tell you what, I'm going to go against you here. I like the Tigers to pull it off. What a surprise. I know they're still heavy underdogs, but you know what? After playing Alabama close last year, I think Clemson is just as good or maybe even better this year. They haven't been great in the back end with their secondary, but I think their defensive line is just as dominant as Alabama's, and I expect Deshaun Watson and that great group of receivers, Deion Kane, Hunter Renfrow, Mike Williams, Jordan Leggett at tight end, to just be a little too explosive for Alabama in the backfield. Dabo Swinney loves to say, bring your own guts, BYOG. And I think that's exactly what Clemson will do Monday night. It's looked to me like they've been sleepwalking through most of the regular season, just waiting on this opportunity. And after that big blowout of Ohio State on Saturday, I think they're going to be ready to play against Alabama on Monday night. But either way, it should be a great game. I'm sad that college football is ending, and I'm already excited for spring practice and all the spring exhibitions we'll be seeing on our TVs in March.
I would love to see Clemson win solely because I would love to just hear what Dabo has to say on field to hopefully Sam Ponder right after the game when he is just filled with so much adrenaline. I'd pay good money to see that. So I wouldn't, go Tigers if we get crazy Dabo.
Brian.
And try to kick anyone out of the country.
That's right. One more thing we should add in before we get away from this national championship game. Let's not forget that the ACC has clearly been the best conference during the bowl season, really staking a claim to arguably the best conference in college football this season because of how they've played the past couple weeks. I think this game on January the 9th is an opportunity to stake that claim even further by beating up on a team that comes from a mediocre division in a mediocre conference. Yep, that's the SEC this year.
Yes, when I hear SEC, that's one of the words that comes to mind.
Well, anyway, before we go too far, there are 4 other big games this weekend as the NFL playoffs are getting started. We're going to run through these quickly just because the wild card round is not something that's real exciting. So, Brian, we got the Oakland Raiders at the Houston Texans Saturday at 4:30. The Texans are 3.5-point favorites. First question, do you know anybody who's going to play quarterback in this game? And second question, who's going to win?
First question, no. Second question, Oakland. Give me Del Rio.
Sounds good. Going with the coaches. It does look like it'll be a Connor Cook versus Brock Osweiler matchup. Really doesn't favor either team. I expect whoever takes a knee the most often to win because they'll throw less interceptions. Moving on to the evening game, 8:15, the Detroit Lions head out west to Seattle Both teams been struggling to the finish line. Seattle is 8-point favorites. Brian, who do you have on Saturday evening?
In my heart, the Washington Redskins. However, they greatly let me down this past weekend. And I think Seattle wins at home. I don't think either team is very impressive. I think the 12th man carries them.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with you here. Ever since Matthew Stafford got that Stafford infection, if you will, in his throwing finger, he's been downhill for the past month. So I just don't think the Lions can pull him out without him at full strength. Let's move on to Sunday. We got the Dolphins making a triumphant return to the playoffs. It wouldn't surprise me if they hadn't been there since Dan Marino was throwing the ball, even though they have with other quarterbacks who aren't as good. But here they are, bringing in backup Matt Moore to play at the Steelers, 1 o'clock on Sunday with the Steelers as 10-point favorites. Who do you have?
This will not even be close. You can plan some chores for about 2 o'clock on Sunday afternoon. In my opinion, brilliant coach, not a cheerleader, as Terry Bradshaw would say. The fine, William & Mary educated Mike Tomlin will lead the Steelers to victory easily. They got the weapons.
I probably am going to agree with you here. Miami did beat the Steelers for the regular season, but it was down in Miami. I think that game was a complete fluke, and I expect the Steelers to roll. And the final game, the big showdown, the New York Football Giants at the Green Bay Packers on Sunday afternoon. The Packers are 4.5-point favorites as of now. What do you think, Brian? Can the New York Football Giants keep their win streak going, or will the hot Packers keep it going in Green Bay?
Hot Packers. I would fear the Packers right now. I think Aaron Rodgers is incredible, and when he's hot, it is hard to stop the Pack. So definitely going to lean Green Bay to dismantle the Giants. Eli's going to be at the beach fishing in just a few days.
Brian, I think I can hear your spite through my earphones after the Giants upset the Redskins on Sunday. Listen, I'm disappointed. I think these are the two best teams that will be playing this weekend. I'm sad they'll be playing each other, but the Giants' defense has been good, has been for real. Would not surprise me to see them upset Green Bay on Sunday. You never see all four home teams win, and so I wonder if this is the game where the road team's able to pick up an upset. But either way, should be some good games this weekend, especially if the snowstorm comes through. I'm glad we've got some things to entertain us on Saturday and Sunday. But that's enough of our sports talk for today. Let's sit back and hear a word from our sponsors. Well, one of the many fabulous sponsors we've had here at the Living Water Boys is water itself. But given that this week celebrates Epiphany, and for many churches, this coming Sunday is Baptism of the Lord Sunday, there is no more fitting sponsor for our episode this week than that of not just water, but the baptismal waters. The ones that help us to remember that we are called and welcomed into God's grace, especially the ones that we swim in underneath the water as we are immersed. That's right, not the waters that sprinkle onto people's foreheads. But so we hope, as you listen to this episode, you have a moment to step back and remember that you have been washed clean by the blood of Jesus through the waters of baptism. And as you sit and worship this Sunday, whether there is the celebration of a baptism or not, may it be a time where you remember your own baptism and are grateful. They say that you've been through the waters and you've come out clean and you've got new clothes to cover your feet. So you won't wear your old shoes on your brand new feet because you've been through the water. So hopefully that's a message that will go through all of you this new year.
Wow, that is a message indeed. And I don't know about you, our listeners, but I think our sponsors keep getting better and better. One closing note on football, and we want to give a shout out to our loyal listener, Josh. He is excited for the FCS championship game this weekend. I know you all are too. The first playoff game on Saturday, January 7th, does not start till 4:30. So you got to do something before that. Watch Youngstown State and JMU battle at noon down in Frisco, Texas. I think the JMU Dukes pull out a win and represent the Commonwealth of Virginia well in the FCS championship game. So go Dukes.
That's right. Go Dukes. They've had a great season. I hope they can keep it up.
Hope so. Now, one of our favorite church topics here, or personally, I'll speak for myself, one of my favorite topics is sermon titling. I want to share with you all that this past weekend, I had the chance to preach on what I call JV Sunday. For the last several years, it feels like I have preached on the Sunday after Christmas, a time when senior pastors will let anyone preach. They're very eager to, take a break as they deserve it and let someone else in the pulpit. So I feel like I've been doing this for years and was not shocked at all when I got the call to do it this year. And I was happy to do it. It's fun. It almost feels like a tradition to me now. Some pastors joke, how do you come up with an original Christmas sermon or Easter sermon after so many years in ministry? I'm only 26 and I already feel that way about New Year's Sunday. So I wanted to have a clever sermon title. So I texted the most clever sermon titler I know. That's right, the Reverend Big Al. We went back and forth on some titles, and I settled on Stop, Celebrate, and Listen. Any guess what I'm referring to there?
My only guess would be the great musical artist Vanilla Ice himself.
Well, you would have guessed right. And I set the over-under at people who would appreciate the title of that sermon at 3. And I think I hit the over. This is my first congregation that has a large enough demographic of people who would even know that Vanilla Ice is a person and not a dessert. So a few people in the handshakes on the way out the door said, great title.
Did you get any vanilla gift cards?
I did not. No, that would have been. I'm not sure what I'd have done with that. But essentially, I preached on Hebrews 1:1-4. Awesome passage. I mean, who would not want to preach on that? But basically, kind of left with a practical conclusion to stop in this time of holiday. Most people had Monday off after Sunday to celebrate the new year, but also listen to the voice of God, as Hebrews 1:1-4 tells us that in these last days, God is speaking not through prophets, but he has spoken to us through the Son. So I think in terms of sermon titling, I'd give myself a B for this past weekend.
Well, it sounds like it really fit the passage, but also maybe fit the time of year, knowing that it's not only a way of reminding the congregation to listen, but also acknowledging the celebration that occurred over the weekend with the New Year's holiday. So I like that you're able to bring the relevance of what's going on with the holiday into the meaningfulness of the text. So I think having it all together really is a great way of merging things. So I really have to commend you on that, Brian.
It was good. It was a fun Sunday. I was pretty surprised. I expected attendance to be at about 60%, but it was at exactly the same that it normally is. So, I don't know what that says about New Year's Eve here, but the pews were full, and nothing wrong with that.
Well, that's great, Brian. I don't know that I can say the same for our congregation, but either way, it was nice to be together and worship, especially after the holidays have kind of pulled folks out of their routines a little bit. So I'm glad to hear that, and it sounds like you had some meaningful words. Hopefully many in your congregation are stopping and listening in the midst of their celebration through the New Year's first week of the year this week.
I hope so. I made a reference in the intro about just the transition from 2016 to 2017. And, I kind of made a joke about how 2016 had failed to take Betty White from us, despite all the celebrity deaths that did happen in 2016. And I would say a majority of the sermon feedback I got after the sermon related to that Betty White joke.
Well, at least you knew they were listening, even if it was just for the first few minutes. It's always good to hear some of that feedback. Sometimes when people just come through the line and shake your hand and say, "Oh, good sermon, Pastor," you wonder if they heard any of it or if they're just kind of repeating the same old phrase they say every week. So I'm glad that at least some heard some of the words you said.
Hey, we do what we can and hope it sticks.
Amen. Just casting those seeds, casting those seeds. Well, it's been another great episode here of the Living Water Boys. We, of course, appreciate our question from loyal listener Todd Moyer and are always happy to answer those. Make sure you can always get us questions both to our email address, livingwaterboys@gmail.com, or you can hit us up on Twitter with the hashtag AskLWB. We, of course, are at the Twitter handle @LivingWaterBoys. For the Reverend, soon to be Reverend McBrien, looking forward to that January 29th date, my friend. The Reverend Big Al and Will the Thrill down in Greenville. This has been another episode of the Living Water Boys. We thank you for listening, and we look forward to seeing you next time. Happy New Year.
And we're out.